My name is Allison, and at 24, I found myself washing dishes at 11 p.m. on a Friday night, while my younger siblings laughed at a movie in the living room. The burnt lasagna pan in my hands represented 14 years of being my family's unpaid housekeeper, a role I'd filled since I was just 10 years old. That night, something inside me finally snapped. Before I share what happened when I completely stopped doing everything for my family, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, and stay with me because this story will show you exactly what happens when the person holding everything together finally walks away. Every Saturday morning at 6 a.m., I would drag myself out of bed to prepare breakfast for my family of 6. While Tyler, my 22-year-old brother Madison, my 20-year-old sister, and the 17-year-old twins Jake and Emma slept peacefully, I stood in our kitchen making personalized breakfasts. Mum needed her egg whites with spinach and exactly one piece of whole wheat toast. Dad wanted his bacon crispy but not burnt eggs over easy and hash browns golden brown. Tyler demanded protein pancakes for his gym routine. Madison required gluten-free waffles because of her latest diet trend. The twins wanted French toast cut into perfect triangles with strawberries arranged in a smiley face pattern. Our 4-bedroom colonial house in suburban Pennsylvania looked perfect from the outside. White picket fence manicured lawn, 2-car garage. Mum worked as a real estate agent, always dressed impeccably in her tailored suits, hosting open houses and closing deals. Dad managed construction sites, coming home covered in dust and exhaustion. We were comfortable, middle class, the kind of family that looked successful in Christmas card photos. But behind that perfect image, I had become invisible labor personified. It started when I was 10 years old, the day Mum brought the twins home from the hospital. She pulled me aside, her perfume mixing with baby powder smell, and said I was her special helper now. At first it felt like an honor. I would hold bottles during feeding time, fold tiny onesies, and sing lullabies when Mom needed a shower. But helping transformed into something else entirely without me noticing the shift. By the time I turned 12, I was cooking full dinners. Mum would leave recipe cards on the counter with sticky notes detailing modifications for everyone's preferences. I learnt to make pot roast that fell apart with a fork lasagna with 3 different cheese layers and chicken parmesan from scratch. Meanwhile, Tyler focused on basketball, traveling for tournaments every weekend. His trophies lined the mantel, each one polished and prominently displayed. Madison discovered her artistic talents, and suddenly our garage became her studio. Canvases covered in oil paints leaned against every wall, and Mum gushed about her creative genius to anyone who would listen. The twins were perpetually too young for responsibilities. First, they were too young because they were babies. Then toddlers who might hurt themselves. Then elementary school kids who needed to focus on learning. Then middle schoolers dealing with social pressures. By high school, the pattern had solidified into concrete. They had never touched a vacuum cleaner or learnt to operate the washing machine. Mum's favourite phrases became my daily soundtrack. When I mentioned the unfairness, she would tilt her head with practiced sympathy and say I was so naturally responsible, so capable, so mature for my age. She insisted the others needed to focus on their special talents. Tyler had his athletic scholarship possibilities. Madison could become the next great American artist. The twins were still finding themselves. But what about me finding myself? That question hung unasked in the air between us. Dad remained notably absent from these conversations. He would arrive home, shower, eat the dinner I prepared, and retreat to his recliner with a beer. On weekends, he disappeared into his workshop or played golf with his buddies. When I tried bringing up the household imbalance, he would pat my shoulder and say I should talk to my mother about house stuff. House stuff. As if maintaining an entire household for 6 people was just stuff. My academic achievements became background noise. I maintained a 3.9 GPA throughout high school, made honor roll every semester, and tutored other students in calculus and chemistry. My acceptance letter to State University came with a partial scholarship offer. But Mum sat me down with her concerned face, the one she used when delivering bad news to clients. She explained how expensive college was, how the family needed me here, how I could start at community college and transfer later. Tyler's full ride to a Division II school for basketball was celebrated with a party. Madison received funding to attend art school in Philadelphia. When the twins' time came, there was no question they would go away to university. So I enrolled in our local community college, scheduling classes around my family's needs. Morning classes ended by noon, so I could grocery shop and prep dinner. I worked 20 hours per week at a dental office, filing insurance claims and scheduling appointments. The money went toward household expenses. Mum forgot to budget for laundry detergent and toilet paper. My co-workers invited me to happy hours and weekend trips, but I always declined. Someone needed to be home to cook Friday dinner and clean for Saturday's activities. Dating felt impossible. Marcus from my anatomy class asked me to study together then, to grab coffee, then to see a movie. Each time I had an excuse. Madison had an art show requiring refreshments. The twins needed rides to 3 different activities. Mum was hosting her book club and needed the house spotless. Marcus eventually stopped asking, and I pretended not to notice his disappointed looks across the classroom. I watched my high school friends post photos from college parties, spring break trips, and study abroad programs. They complained about dining hall food and shared stories about terrible roommates. Meanwhile, I perfected my pot roast recipe and learnt to remove grass stains from white baseball pants. My Instagram featured photos of elaborate dinners I cooked and the vegetable garden I maintained because Mum thought it would save money on groceries. The resentment built slowly like limestone forming in a cave. Each drop seemed insignificant, but over time, they created something solid and unmovable. Tyler brought his girlfriend home for dinner and she complimented my cooking while he took credit for teaching me family recipes. Madison used my clean laundry studio backgrounds for her art portfolio photos, never mentioning who washed and folded those pristine white sheets. The twins told their friends their mum was super organised and kept everything running smoothly while Mum stood behind them, beaming with pride she hadn't earned. 2 weeks before I finally broke, Mum announced we would host Thanksgiving for the extended family. 25 people would descend upon our house, including Grandma Rose with her diabetes cousin Janet, with her new vegan lifestyle, and Uncle Pete with his gluten intolerance. Mum volunteered this information at dinner while scrolling through her phone, already mentally absent from the conversation. She had a real estate conference in Atlantic City that week. She explained a crucial networking opportunity she couldn't miss. But not to worry, because Allison would handle everything beautifully, just like always. She said this while Tyler shoveled the pasta I'd made into his mouth. Madison photographed her plate for social media, and the twins texted under the table. Nobody looked up. Nobody questioned the arrangement. I spent the next 3 days creating spreadsheets for the meal. Menu planning became a mathematical equation of dietary restrictions, cooking times, and oven space. The turkey needed 6 hours, but the green bean casserole required the same oven temperature for 45 minutes. The pumpkin pies had to be made ahead, but the apple pie tasted better fresh. Cousin Janet's vegan stuffing couldn't touch the regular stuffing. Grandma Rose needed sugar-free dessert options. Uncle Pete required gluten-free everything. The shopping trip started a week early. I pushed cart after cart through grocery stores, comparing prices and checking ingredients lists. Organic cranberries for Madison, who claimed she could taste the pesticides in regular ones. Name brand everything for Mum, who insisted generic products would be noticed and judged. The turkey alone cost $78, a fresh 24-pounder that barely fit in our refrigerator. I paid with my credit card, knowing Mom would forget to reimburse me until I asked multiple times. While I prepared for Thursday, my siblings continued their lives uninterrupted. Tyler brought his basketball team over Tuesday night for what he called a quick practice session. They trampled through the house in muddy sneakers, leaving prints on the carpet I'd just cleaned. Empty Gatorade bottles littered the living room, and someone had spilled nacho cheese on the couch cushions. When I asked Tyler to clean up, he laughed and said he had an early morning practice and needed sleep. Madison decided Tuesday was perfect for experimenting with papier-mâché sculptures. She spread newspapers across the kitchen table, mixing flour and water in my good mixing bowls. Paint splattered across the backsplash I'd scrubbed the day before. Glue dripped onto the floor, creating sticky patches that grabbed my socks when I walked past. When I mentioned the mess, she sighed dramatically and explained that art couldn't be constrained by bourgeois concerns about cleanliness. She left for her boyfriend's house, while the paste dried into concrete hard lumps. The twins threw a party Wednesday night. They claimed it was just a few friends coming over to study, but 30 teenagers appeared with bottles hidden in backpacks. Music shook the walls while I tried to brine the turkey in the kitchen. Red Solo cups appeared on every surface despite my protests. Someone broke Mum's favourite vase and the pieces were hastily hidden in the trash. Jake promised they would clean everything in the morning, but morning came with both twins too hungover to move. Thanksgiving Day arrived with me waking at 4 a.m. The turkey needed to start cooking immediately to be ready by 2 p.m. I stuffed it with herbs and butter, creating the perfect golden skin Mum would accept compliments for later. The sweet potatoes needed peeling, the green beans required trimming, and the cranberry sauce had to simmer for exactly 45 minutes to achieve the right consistency. By 7 a.m., I had 3 pies cooling and bread dough rising. The dining room table was set with Mom's wedding china, each place setting measured to her exact specifications. The autumn centerpiece I'd assembled from grocery store flowers and painted pine cones looked professionally designed. Cloth napkins were folded into perfect fans, and place cards written in calligraphy I'd taught myself from YouTube videos marked each seat. Relatives started arriving at noon, 3 hours earlier than planned. Aunt Carol swept in wearing too much perfume and immediately began her inspection. She ran her finger along the mantel, checking for dust, and peered into corners, looking for cobwebs. Finding nothing to criticize about the cleaning, she turned her attention to me. Still wearing my apron splattered with gravy stains, hair pulled back in a messy bun, she looked me up and down with practiced disappointment. "You'll make someone a wonderful wife someday, Allison," she announced loud enough for everyone to hear. "Men love women who know their way around a kitchen. Though you might want to freshen up before dinner, first impressions matter, dear." Uncle Pete cornered me while I was checking the turkey. He wanted to know why I wasn't at a real university like Tyler. Didn't I have ambitions beyond this community college situation? His daughter Stephanie was pre-med at Johns Hopkins, he mentioned for the 4th time. Perhaps I should consider culinary school since I seem to enjoy cooking. At least that would be a career path, something respectable. Grandma Rose needed her insulin shot exactly 30 minutes before eating, but nobody else knew how to help her with it. The twins had disappeared to their rooms, claiming they needed to get dressed. Madison was showing her art portfolio to relatives, accepting praise for her talent and dedication. Tyler held court in the living room, recounting his latest basketball victory to an audience of admiring aunts and uncles. Mum arrived at 1:45, 15 minutes before dinner was scheduled to be served. She swept through the door in a cloud of expensive perfume and professional success, immediately taking position in the kitchen as if she'd been there all along. When Aunt Margaret complimented the perfect turkey, Mum laughed her tinkling laugh and said it was an old family recipe she'd perfected over the years. When Cousin Janet thanked her for remembering the vegan options, Mum graciously accepted the gratitude, mentioning how important it was to consider everyone's dietary needs. The meal proceeded with choreographed precision I'd orchestrated, but received no credit for. Each dish arrived at the table hot and perfectly seasoned. The conversation flowed around me while I jumped up repeatedly to fetch forgotten items, refill water glasses, and clear empty plates. Mom held court at the head of the table, regaling everyone with stories from her conference, the important connections she'd made, the deals she was closing. During dessert, Madison told our cousin about how lucky she was not to be stuck with boring household responsibilities. She could focus entirely on her art, without distractions like cooking or cleaning. The universe had blessed her with a family who understood the importance of nurturing creativity. Tyler jumped in with his own contribution, joking that he didn't even know where we kept the vacuum cleaner. The twins laughed about not knowing how to operate the washing machine, as if this ignorance was charming rather than pathetic. Someone asked who had actually cooked this magnificent feast, and Mum waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, Allison helped out while I was at my conference. I've taught her everything she knows about hosting. It's important to pass down these skills to the next generation of women in the family." Helped out, as if I hadn't spent 2 weeks planning shopping and cooking, as if she had taught me anything beyond the expectation that I would handle everything without complaint or recognition. I excused myself to use the bathroom, but really I needed to escape before I said something that would ruin everyone's perfect Thanksgiving. I locked the bathroom door and sat on the closed toilet lid, tears streaming down my face. Through the door, I could hear laughter and conversation continuing without me. Nobody noticed my absence or wondered if I needed help with anything. I was invisible except when something needed doing. My reflection in the mirror showed a 24-year-old woman who looked older, exhausted with dark circles under her eyes and hands raw from constant washing. That's when the decision started forming in my mind. Not a full plan yet, just a seed of rebellion that would soon grow into something unstoppable. I wiped my face, fixed my smile, and returned to serve coffee and clear dishes. But something fundamental had shifted inside me. The limestone resentment had become a mountain, and mountains eventually cause avalanches. Black Friday morning arrived with Mom shaking me awake at 7 a.m., which felt like a luxury compared to my usual 6 o'clock rising. Still groggy from cleaning up after yesterday's feast until 2 a.m., I listened to her excited chatter about the amazing deals she planned to score. But first, she had an announcement that made my stomach drop. Her book club was having their annual holiday brunch on Sunday. 40 women would be attending, including the mayor's wife and several prominent business owners. This was her chance to network and potentially gain new clients. The menu needed to be sophisticated but not pretentious, elegant but approachable. individual quiche cups with various fillings, fresh fruit salad with honey lime dressing, homemade scones with clotted cream, mini Danish pastries, and of course mimosas with fresh squeezed orange juice. She handed me a typed list with specific requirements. The quiches needed to be crustless for the carb-conscious members. The fruit salad should avoid melons because Margaret was allergic. The scones required both sweet and savoury options. Everything had to be individually plated because buffet style was too casual for this calibre of gathering. She would need the dining room and living room spotless fresh flowers arranged and classical music playing softly in the background. Then she grabbed her purse and headed for the door where Dad, Tyler, Madison and the twins were already waiting. They were hitting the Black Friday sales as a family tradition, she explained, though I couldn't recall being invited to this tradition. Tyler wanted a new gaming system. Madison needed art supplies for her senior showcase. The twins had their eyes on designer clothes. Mum herself was hunting for the perfect outfit for her company Christmas party. Dad just wanted to get it over with, but went along to carry bags. 8 hours later, they returned with arms full of shopping bags. Tyler's PlayStation 5 box was prominently displayed a $700 purchase Mum justified as an early Christmas gift. Madison showed off her new easel and professional-grade oil paints that cost more than my monthly car payment. The twins modelled their new designer jeans and name-brand sneakers at least $400 worth of clothing each. Mum's new dress hung in a garment bag that screamed expensive. I searched through the bags for any sign of groceries for Sunday's brunch. Nothing. Not even a bag of flour or a dozen eggs. When I mentioned this oversight, Mum barely looked up from admiring her new dress. "Oh, I knew you'd handle the shopping, dear. You always know exactly what to get. There's cash in the kitchen drawer." The kitchen drawer contained $43 and change. I estimated the brunch supplies would cost at least $300 for 40 guests expecting gourmet food. My paycheck from the dental office had deposited that morning meant for my car insurance and phone bill. But what choice did I have? Sunday was in 36 hours and nothing would be open tomorrow for shopping. Saturday morning found me at 3 different grocery stores, maxing out my credit card on organic eggs, expensive cheese, and fresh berries that cost $15 per pound. The quiche ingredients alone totaled $90. Specialty flour for the scones cream. That wasn't ultra-pasteurized for the clotted cream. Valencia oranges for fresh juice. Each store visit revealed another forgotten essential that required another transaction, another hit to my already strained finances. I started cooking at 2 p.m. Saturday afternoon. 40 individual quiche cups meant preparing enough egg mixture for 10 full-sized quiches, then carefully portioning them into silicone molds. Each one needed a different filling combination: spinach and Gruyere, bacon and cheddar mushroom, and Swiss tomato and basil. The oven could only hold 2 muffin tins at a time, meaning 20 separate baking cycles of 25 minutes each. While the quiches baked and cooled, I made scone dough. Sweet scones with cranberries and orange zest. Savoury scones with cheese and herbs. The recipe had to be quadrupled to make enough for 40 guests to have options. My stand mixer groaned under the weight of so much dough and flour covered every surface, despite my best efforts to contain it. Madison chose that evening to have friends over for what she called an intimate gathering. 15 people crammed into our living room playing music that rattled the windows and made concentration impossible. They ordered pizza and left boxes stacked on the kitchen counter I was using. Someone spilled beer on the carpet Mum wanted pristine for tomorrow. When I asked Madison to keep it down, she rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic about a little get-together. Her friends laughed at my flour-covered appearance, making jokes about hiring help who couldn't even stay clean. By midnight, I was only halfway through the prep work. The Danish pastries still needed assembling, the fruit salad required chopping, and the clotted cream wasn't setting properly. Mum appeared in the kitchen in her silk pajamas, phone pressed to her ear. She was telling someone how easy entertaining was when you had a system, how she'd learned to delegate tasks efficiently. She grabbed a fresh-baked scone, took a bite, and made a face. "These seem a bit dry, Allison. Did you follow my recipe exactly? You know how particular the book club ladies are. Everything needs to be perfect tomorrow." My recipe. As if she'd ever made scones in her life. As if she knew the difference between baking powder and baking soda. I wanted to throw the mixing bowl at her head, but instead, I promised to make another batch. She patted my shoulder condescendingly and reminded me that presentation was everything before heading back to bed. At 2 a.m. Sunday morning, I stood in the destroyed kitchen. Every surface was covered in dirty dishes, spilled ingredients, or cooling baked goods. The dishwasher had already run 3 times, but pots and pans still towered in the sink. My back ached from standing for 12 hours. My hands were cracked from constant washing. The burn on my forearm from catching a hot pan throbbed with each heartbeat. I tried one more time to make the clotted cream set properly, whipping it with increasing desperation. It remained stubbornly liquid, refusing to transform into the thick, luxurious topping Mum had specifically requested. The timer went off for the last batch of quiche cups. I pulled them from the oven perfect golden brown and set them on the cooling rack with the other 117 individual quiches I'd already made. That's when something inside me finally snapped completely. I looked at the mess at the 40-place settings I still needed to arrange, at the flowers I hadn't had time to buy, at my reflection in the dark window, showing a woman I didn't recognize. My hands started shaking, then my whole body. The mixing bowl slipped from my grip, sending failed clotted cream splattering across the floor. I didn't clean it up. Instead, I walked upstairs, quiet as a ghost in my own home. My room looked exactly as I'd left it that morning, bed unmade because I'd started cooking immediately. I pulled my old backpack from the closet and filled it with essentials. A change of clothes, my laptop phone charger, the envelope of cash I'd hidden for emergencies. My car keys felt heavy in my hand, weighted with decision. The note I left was brief, written on Mum's personalised stationery she used for important correspondence. "Handle it yourselves. I'm done being your servant. Allison." I placed it on the kitchen counter right next to the 120 individual quiche cups that would need reheating and the failed clotted cream slowly spreading across the floor. The front door closed behind me with a soft click that felt like thunder. My car started immediately despite the cold, and I drove away from the house that had been my prison for 14 years. Lauren, my best friend since middle school, answered her door at 3:15 a.m. without question. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug that broke the dam I'd built inside myself. I sobbed into her shoulder while she guided me to her spare bedroom, already making plans to help me escape for good. For the first time in 14 years, I fell asleep without setting an alarm for the next morning's breakfast preparations. Sunday morning arrived with my phone exploding into chaos at 9 a.m. 47 missed calls created a wall of notifications on my screen. Text messages poured in so fast I couldn't read them before new ones appeared. Voicemails filled my inbox within minutes. I sat on Lauren's couch wrapped in a blanket that smelled like freedom and watched the numbers climb. Mum's first message was pure confusion. "Allison, where are you? The ladies will be here in an hour." The second showed growing panic. "This isn't funny. Get home now." By the 5th message, her real estate agent composure had cracked completely. "How could you do this to me? You're ruining everything I've worked for." Dad's voicemails carried bewilderment rather than anger. "Princess, what's going on? Your mother is having a breakdown. Just come home and we'll figure this out." He'd never called me princess before, not once in 24 years. Funny how emotional manipulation suddenly made me worthy of pet names. Tyler's messages were brief and annoyed. "Where's breakfast?" Then, "Mum says get home." Then, "This is really immature, Allison." And finally, "Who's supposed to make lunch?" The fact that a 22-year-old man didn't know how to make his own lunch would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. Madison sent long rambling texts about how my dramatic exit was affecting her artistic process. She needed a calm environment to create, and everyone yelling about the brunch disaster was disturbing her chakras. Could I please just come home and fix everything so she could paint in peace? Her senior showcase was in 3 weeks, and this stress would show in her work. The twins' messages were the most revealing. Emma wanted to know who would drive her to the mall later. Jake needed his basketball uniform washed for tomorrow's game. Neither expressed concern for my well-being or curiosity about why I'd left. They only cared about how my absence affected their immediate needs. Lauren made me tea while I scrolled through the messages. She'd witnessed years of my family's treatment, often offering her couch when I needed escape. Now she sat beside me, reading over my shoulder with increasing disgust. When she reached Tyler's lunch complaint, she grabbed my phone and turned it off completely. "You're not going back," she declared. "At least not today. Let them figure it out." Mum's book club disaster unfolded through fragmented information I pieced together later. She'd woken at 8:30, expecting to find the house transformed into an elegant venue. Instead, she discovered my note next to cold quiche cups and congealed cream. The kitchen looked like a bomb had detonated, every surface covered in the debris of my midnight cooking marathon. With 30 minutes until guest arrival, she tried commanding my siblings into action. Tyler claimed he didn't know how to reheat food without ruining it. Madison said she couldn't help because she was allergic to cleaning products. The twins suddenly remembered urgent homework assignments that required immediate attention. Dad retreated to his workshop muttering about women's business. Mum frantically called 3 catering companies, but Sunday morning emergency service came with astronomical fees. The only available option cost $800 for basic sandwiches and grocery store cookies, a far cry from the gourmet brunch she'd advertised. She maxed out her credit card as the doorbell began ringing. The mayor's wife arrived first, her practiced political smile faltering when she saw Mum's frazzled appearance. The living room still showed evidence of Madison's party beer stains on the carpet pizza boxes shoved behind the couch and a suspicious smell that suggested someone had been sick in a corner. The kitchen was off limits too, destroyed to even pretend normalcy. Mum tried serving the reheated quiche cups, but without my careful attention, they turned rubbery in the microwave. The scones had hardened overnight into weapons that could break teeth. The fruit salad I'd partially prepared looked sad and oxidized in its bowl. The orange juice was store-bought because nobody knew how to operate the juicer. Madison was pressed into service as an emergency waitress, but she'd never carried a tray in her life. She dropped an entire plate of quiche on Mrs. Henderson's designer dress. When attempting to pour coffee, she burned herself on the pot and shrieked so loudly that several guests jumped, spilling their own drinks. Her artistic temperament, so carefully cultivated and protected, crumbled under the pressure of actual work. The gossip mill started grinding immediately. By evening, Mum's professional Facebook groups were buzzing with thinly veiled posts about the importance of proper preparation and the embarrassment of false advertising. Her reputation as the neighborhood's perfect hostess evaporated in 3 hours of disaster. Several book club members privately messaged each other about finding a new meeting location. Meanwhile, I spent Sunday in Lauren's apartment experiencing something I'd forgotten existed: peace. We ordered Chinese takeout that someone else cooked and delivered. I took a 3-hour nap without anyone waking me to ask where something was or what was for dinner. Lauren and I watched movies without interruption, and I didn't check my phone once. That evening, my family attempted a group video call. I almost didn't answer, but Lauren encouraged me to face them from a position of strength. Their faces filled my laptop screen, each displaying different stages of grief. Mum's perfect makeup was smeared, her hair unstyled for possibly the first time in my memory. Dad looked confused, like he'd walked into the wrong movie theater and couldn't understand the plot. Tyler seemed angry, his jaw clenched with entitlement. Madison's eyes were red from crying, though I suspected it was more about her ruined party than concern for me. The twins just looked hungry. "You've made your point." Mum started trying to regain her composure. "This little tantrum has been very effective. Now come home." "It's not a tantrum," I replied, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "It's 14 years overdue." "You're being dramatic," Tyler interjected. "We're a family. Families help each other." "When have any of you helped me?" The question hung in the digital space between us. Name one time in the last year any of you cooked a meal, washed dishes, or cleaned anything without being forced. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Madison tried deflecting. "We all have our roles. You're good at house stuff. I'm good at art. Tyler's good at sports." "House stuff isn't a talent, Madison. It's work. Work none of you value enough to do yourselves, but somehow expect me to do forever." And Dad finally spoke, using his construction manager voice that usually ended discussions. "Enough of this nonsense, Allison. You're coming home tomorrow and we'll forget this happened." "No," I said simply. "I'm done being your servant. If you want me back, things need to change dramatically." Mum started crying, then not her delicate tears reserved for emotional real estate closings, but ugly sobs that made her face blotchy. "How could you embarrass me like this? My reputation is ruined." "Your reputation was built on my labor," I shot back. "Every dinner party, every holiday, every event that made you look like the perfect mother was actually me working myself to exhaustion while you took credit." The call ended with them demanding I return, me refusing, and Lauren making obscene gestures behind my laptop that almost made me laugh. I turned off my phone again and went to bed in sheets I hadn't washed in a room I hadn't cleaned after eating food I hadn't cooked. It felt like rebellion. It felt like freedom. It felt like finally breathing after holding my breath for 14 years. The first week of my absence proved that my family had been living in a fantasy where food magically appeared and messes cleaned themselves. By Monday evening, they'd already spent $200 on takeout, discovering that feeding 6 people restaurant food 3 times a day devastated their budget. Tyler's athlete appetite alone cost $40 per meal when he ordered his usual protein-heavy dishes. Madison's dietary restrictions meant expensive specialty restaurants. The twins complained about eating fast food but refused to learn how to cook anything beyond cereal. Tuesday brought the great laundry crisis. Jake needed his basketball uniform for practice, but found it buried in a hamper that had become a mountain of dirty clothes. He tried washing it alone using half a bottle of detergent because more soap obviously meant cleaner clothes. The washing machine overflowed with suds, flooding the laundry room floor. The uniform came out still dirty, but now also stained blue from the pen he'd left in the pocket. His coach made him run extra laps for showing up in practice gear that looked like it had been tie-dyed by accident. Emma discovered that her favorite jeans had been worn so many times without washing that they could practically stand on their own. She attempted to use the washing machine after Jake's disaster, but forgot to separate colors from whites. Her entire wardrobe of carefully curated white tops turned various shades of pink and grey. Her social media meltdown about ruined clothes garnered sympathy until someone commented, "Maybe learn to do laundry yourself." The comment got more likes than her original post. Wednesday revealed Tyler's complete inability to feed himself. He stood in front of the fully stocked refrigerator, staring at raw ingredients like they were complex mathematical equations. He knew how to eat chicken breast but not how to cook it. He could identify vegetables but had no idea how to transform them into edible food. His attempt at making pasta resulted in a pot of gelatinous mush because he didn't know you were supposed to boil the water first. His girlfriend Sarah came over and laughed at the disaster before breaking up with him, saying she wanted a partner, not a child who needed mothering. Madison's art studio in the garage became a health hazard by Thursday. Without me cleaning around her creative chaos, paint-covered rags attracted flies. Mouldy coffee cups grew science experiments. Her latest canvas, which she'd left wet on the floor, got stepped on by Dad, leaving a boot print across what was supposed to be her portfolio centerpiece. She tried cleaning with bathroom cleaner, which reacted with the oil paints to create toxic fumes that required opening all windows in 30-degree weather. The kitchen sink backed up on Friday because nobody knew you had to run the garbage disposal regularly and not pour grease down the drain. Dad tried fixing it himself to avoid a plumber's bill. He disconnected pipes without turning off the water first, creating a geyser that soaked the entire kitchen. The water leaked through the floor to the basement, ruining boxes of Christmas decorations Mum had collected for 20 years. The plumber, who eventually came, charged $500 for the emergency call and lectured Dad about basic maintenance. By Saturday, the house looked like a disaster zone. Dishes molded in various rooms where people had eaten and abandoned them. The bathroom had no clean towels, and nobody could figure out the washing machine's settings after Jake's bubble disaster. The garbage hadn't been taken to the curb, so 3 weeks' worth of trash accumulated, attracting raccoons that scattered debris across the yard. The neighbours started complaining about the smell and the eyesore. Mum tried hiring a cleaning service, but the quote for the level of deep cleaning required was $1,500. She'd have to sacrifice her spa day and new outfit budget for the month. The cleaning lady took one look at Madison's room and demanded hazard pay. She found plates under beds with food so old it had evolved into new life forms. The twins' bathroom was declared a biohazard that required professional sanitization. Week 2 brought more serious consequences. Mum had to cancel showing houses to clients because her professional wardrobe was all dirty or ruined from amateur laundry attempts. She tried ironing a blouse, but burned a hole through it because nobody had ever cleaned the iron's plate. Her commission-based income took a massive hit when she lost 3 potential sales due to her disheveled appearance and obvious stress. Tyler's coach benched him after he showed up to practice 3 days in a row without proper nutrition. His performance tanked from eating only fast food and energy drinks. The scouts who'd been watching him for a possible professional opportunity moved on to other players who maintained their conditioning. His dreams of going pro dissolved along with his muscle mass and stamina. Madison missed her senior showcase deadline because she spent all her time trying to maintain basic living conditions instead of creating art. Her professor, who'd been considering her for a prestigious internship, told her that true artists learn to balance life and art. Madison ugly cried about the unfairness while surrounded by the dirty dishes she still hadn't learned to wash properly. The twins' college recommendation letters from their teachers mentioned their recent decline in appearance and apparent lack of basic life skills. One teacher wrote, "I have concerns about their readiness for independent living required in college." Their dream schools suddenly seemed out of reach, all because they couldn't manage to show up to class in clean clothes with completed homework. Week 3 hit the family's social standing. Dad's co-workers started joking about his wrinkled clothes and the smell of mildew that followed him. Someone nicknamed him Pigpen, after the Charlie Brown character. His boss pulled him aside to discuss professional appearance and how it reflected on the company. The promotion he'd been expecting went to someone else who better represented company values. Mum's book club officially uninvited her from future meetings. The president sent a polite but firm email explaining that hosting required certain standards they felt she could no longer meet. Her real estate agency's holiday party invitation was mysteriously lost in the mail. She saw photos on Facebook of her colleagues celebrating without her toasting deals. She wasn't making because she was too busy trying to figure out how to remove the mysterious stains from the kitchen counter. The neighborhood WhatsApp group started sharing photos of our house's declining exterior. The lawn grew wild because nobody knew how to start the lawnmower. Leaves piled up on the walkway, creating a slipping hazard. Someone reported them to the HOA, resulting in a fine for violating community standards. Mum had to pay $300 and received a warning that continued violations would result in legal action. Meanwhile, I thrived in my new life at Lauren's apartment. I enrolled in online classes to finish my bachelor's degree, something I'd put off for years. The dental office promoted me to office manager when I showed up consistently well-rested and professionally dressed. Marcus from my anatomy class reached out again and we started dating. He couldn't believe I'd been hidden away as an unpaid domestic servant when I was smart, funny, and ambitious. My family's attempts to manipulate me back grew increasingly desperate. Mum tried guilt sending photos of Dad eating cereal for dinner with the caption, "This is what you've reduced us to." Tyler attempted anger, leaving voicemails calling me selfish and irresponsible. Madison went for emotional manipulation, crying about how I was ruining her artistic future. The twins tried bribery, offering to pay me from their allowance if I'd just come back and cook. But I held firm, watching from a distance as the family that had taken me for granted finally understood the weight of everything I'd carried alone. Their perfect suburban life was revealed as a facade built on my invisible labor. Without their unpaid servant, they were just 6 adults who couldn't manage basic survival skills despite their collective intelligence and resources. After 3 weeks of complete household collapse, my family finally requested a formal meeting at a neutral location. They chose Antonio's, an upscale Italian restaurant, where public setting would hopefully prevent emotional outbursts. I arrived with Lauren as my support system, finding them already seated at a large round table looking like disaster survivors. Mum had attempted to style herself, but clearly hadn't mastered the art of ironing. Her blouse showed creases in all the wrong places, and her usually perfect manicure was chipped and grown out. Dad wore a polo shirt inside out, the tag visible at his neck, apparently unaware of this fashion disaster. Tyler's athletic build had softened his face puffy from 3 weeks of fast food. Madison had paint in her hair that she'd tried to hide with a headband but only made more obvious. The twins wore mismatched outfits that suggested they'd dressed in the dark from the floor pile of clothes. "Thank you for coming." Mum started formally as if this were a real estate negotiation. "We need to discuss your return home." "I'm not discussing my return," I clarified immediately. "I'm here to discuss the terms under which I might consider helping again." Tyler scoffed, but his protest died when Dad shot him a warning look. They needed me more than their pride could handle, and everyone knew it. Mum pulled out her phone, ready to take notes like this was a client meeting. "What are your demands?" "They're not demands, they're requirements for basic respect and fairness." I pulled out my own phone where I'd written everything down. First, a formal written chore schedule with every family member assigned equal responsibilities. This will be posted publicly in the kitchen and photographed weekly for accountability. "We don't need something so formal," Dad protested. "We're family." "Family is exactly why we need it formal," I countered. "Family doesn't mean one person serves everyone else." I continued reading my list. Second, a sincere apology from each of you acknowledging the years of unfair treatment. Not a general sorry, but specific recognition of how you've taken advantage of me. Madison started crying. "This is so harsh. We didn't mean to hurt you." "Impact matters more than intention," Lauren interjected, earning a grateful look from me. Third, financial support for my education. I'm finishing my bachelor's degree, and you'll contribute the same amount you spent on Tyler's basketball camps and Madison's art supplies. Mum's face went pale mentally, calculating the thousands they'd invested in my siblings' pursuits while I paid my own community college tuition. Fourth, my availability for household tasks will be limited to specific hours. I'm not on call 24/7 anymore. Emergencies don't include forgotten lunches or needing rides because someone didn't plan ahead. Fifth, we're starting family therapy. No negotiation on this. We need professional help to reset these dynamics. The twins exchanged panicked looks. Jake ventured, "Therapy seems extreme. Living as your unpaid servant for 14 years was extreme," I replied flatly. Sixth immediate implementation of consequences for not maintaining responsibilities. If someone doesn't do their assigned tasks, they lose privileges. Tyler loses gym membership. Madison loses art supply budget. Twins lose car privileges. Parents lose their recreational activities. "That's not fair," Tyler exploded. "The gym is essential for my career. And a functioning household is essential for everyone's life." I shot back. "Welcome to accountability. I had more conditions involving respect for my time, no last-minute demands, and recognition of my contributions in front of extended family. The list was comprehensive and non-negotiable." "This is ridiculous." Tyler stood up. "You're not that important. We can figure it out without you." "Then do it," I challenged. "It's been 3 weeks. How's that working out?" He stomped out, but nobody followed. They couldn't afford to support his tantrum when their lives were falling apart. Mum tried negotiating. "Perhaps we could start with a few of these conditions and work up to the rest." "All or nothing," I stated firmly. "I've compromised my entire life. I'm done negotiating against myself." Dad rubbed his face tiredly. "Allison, this seems like you're punishing us." "No, I'm establishing boundaries. If equality feels like punishment to you, that shows how unfair things have been." Madison made one last attempt at manipulation. "But I'll never have time for art with all these chores. I managed a 3.9 GPA while doing everyone's chores. You'll figure it out." The standoff lasted another 2 weeks. During that time, I flourished. My online classes were going well, with professors commenting on the quality of my work. Marcus and I went on real dates where I didn't have to rush home to cook dinner. I joined a hiking group and discovered I actually enjoyed exercise when it wasn't squeezed between laundry loads. My promotion came with a significant raise that I could save instead of spending on household supplies. The dental office patients commented on how much happier I seemed. My skin cleared up from the stress-induced breakouts I'd accepted as normal. I slept 8 hours every night and woke up naturally instead of to an alarm screaming about breakfast duty. Lauren and I cooked together for fun, experimenting with recipes because we wanted to, not because 6 people demanded feeding. Meanwhile, my family's situation deteriorated further. Mum lost her biggest client when she showed up to a $1 million listing presentation with visible food stains on her jacket. The commission loss meant cancelling the family vacation they'd planned to Hawaii, a trip I'd never been included in anyway, because someone needed to watch the house. Tyler's girlfriend Sarah spread the word about his incompetence, and suddenly no girls at his gym would date him. His attempts at cooking resulted in food poisoning that kept him bedridden for 3 days. He missed important training sessions and lost his starting position on the team. Madison's art professor suggested she take a gap year to figure out her priorities after she submitted a portfolio piece that had actual mold growing on it from her disgusting room. The prestigious internship went to another student who could balance art and basic hygiene. The twins failed their driving tests because the car was too filthy for the instructor to sit in comfortably. They had to admit to their friends that they couldn't get licenses because they didn't know how to clean a vehicle. Their social status plummeted from cool seniors to the weird kids who smelled like dirty laundry. Finally, after 5 weeks total, they surrendered completely. Mum sent a formal email accepting all my terms. A family lawyer drew up an actual contract with the chore schedule, financial commitments, and therapy requirements. Each family member recorded video apologies that I insisted be genuine, not scripted. It took multiple attempts before anyone managed authentic remorse instead of self-pity disguised as sorry. The family therapy sessions were revealing. The therapist, Dr. Martinez, didn't hide her shock at the family dynamics. She asked my parents point blank how they'd justified treating children so differently. Mum broke down admitting she'd recreated her own childhood where she'd been the golden child while her sister did everything. Dad confessed he'd never thought about housework as real work because his mother had done everything without complaint. Tyler had to confront his sexism and entitlement, realizing he'd been groomed to expect women to serve him. Madison discovered her artistic identity was partially built on avoiding anything practical, which actually limited her creativity. The twins faced the harsh reality that they were nearly adults with the life skills of toddlers, completely unprepared for college or independence. The implementation of our new family system started with everyone signing the contract in front of Dr. Martinez and a notary. The chore wheel was color-coded and laminated, hanging prominently in the kitchen where nobody could claim ignorance. Each person had assigned days for cooking, cleaning, laundry, and yard work. The twins tried to trade their cooking days for extra cleaning, but I shut that down immediately. Everyone needed to learn every skill. Tyler's first cooking attempt under the new regime was painful to watch, but necessary. He spent 2 hours making spaghetti with jarred sauce, somehow burning the pasta while leaving the inside of the meatballs raw. We ate cereal that night, but he had to clean up his disaster and try again the next week. By his 4th attempt, he managed edible chicken stir-fry, and the pride on his face was something I'd never seen before. Madison discovered that cleaning could be meditative, incorporating it into her artistic process. She started seeing the patterns in soap bubbles, the color gradients in dirty water, the sculpture potential in folded laundry. Her art became more grounded and authentic, moving away from pretentious abstracts to pieces that reflected real life. Her professor noticed the improvement immediately. The twins struggled most, having been babied the longest. Jake's first laundry load resulted in everything being pink, while Emma's attempt at mopping created more mess than cleanliness. But they were 17, not 7, and the embarrassment of their incompetence among peers motivated them to learn quickly. Their friends started calling them out on their helplessness, and social pressure succeeded where family requests had failed. Mum had to relearn how to manage a household she'd only been pretending to run. She discovered that grocery shopping required planning, that toiletries didn't magically appear, and that maintaining a clean house took hours of daily work. Her newfound respect for domestic labor translated into her real estate practice, where she started advocating for proper valuation of homemakers' contributions in divorce settlements. Dad's transformation was perhaps most surprising. He started taking pride in household tasks, approaching them with the same precision he used at construction sites. His organized tool approach to cleaning supplies and his project management style for meal planning actually improved our household efficiency. He even started a neighborhood dad's cooking group, turning his newfound skills into social connection. I returned home after 8 weeks of independence, but everything had changed. My room had been deep cleaned and redecorated with items my family had noticed. I liked plants by the window, a new bookshelf, a reading chair I'd admired online. They'd transformed it from a place I slept between chores into an actual sanctuary that reflected my personality. The financial support for my education came through immediately. I enrolled in the State University as a transfer student, finally pursuing the biochemistry degree I'd dreamed about. My schedule was respected, with family members checking the shared calendar before making any requests. When I studied for exams, the house stayed quiet. When I had evening classes, someone else handled dinner without complaint. Marcus became a regular at family dinners, witnessing the dramatic transformation. He couldn't believe the same family that had treated me like a servant now took turns serving meals and cleaning up. Tyler even asked Marcus for gym advice, treating him as an equal rather than competition. Madison painted a portrait of us as a couple, capturing something beautiful about partnership that she was only beginning to understand. The twins applied to colleges with essays about personal growth and learning from failure. Their honest reflection on how privilege had stunted their development impressed admissions officers tired of reading perfect life narratives. They both got into good schools, not their dream ones, but appropriate for their actual preparation level. More importantly, they were ready for the independence college required. 6 months into our new dynamic, we hosted Thanksgiving again. This time everyone had assignments. Tyler handled appetizers, proud of his stuffed mushrooms that actually tasted good. Madison managed desserts, creating Instagram-worthy pies that were both beautiful and edible. The twins set up and broke down, transforming our spaces efficiently. Mum and Dad shared main dish duties, while I coordinated and filled gaps without carrying the entire burden. When extended family arrived, they noticed the difference immediately. The house still looked perfect, but the exhaustion was distributed equally instead of concentrated in one person. Aunt Carol made her usual backhanded compliments, but this time, Mum shut her down publicly, crediting me for years of unrecognized labor that had made previous gatherings possible. Uncle Pete asked about my university studies, genuinely interested in my biochemistry research rather than condescendingly suggesting culinary school. When he heard about my professor's recommendation for graduate programs, he offered to connect me with his colleague at Johns Hopkins. The same program his daughter attended, but now I was worthy of the connection based on my own merits. The evening flowed smoothly, with everyone contributing. When someone needed something, the nearest person helped, instead of everyone looking to me. The kitchen stayed relatively clean because multiple people maintained it throughout the day. When the dishwasher needed loading, Tyler just did it without being asked. Madison refreshed drinks while chatting with guests. The twins managed coats and parking logistics. Dad carved the turkey while Mom plated sides, and I actually sat down and enjoyed conversations instead of running myself ragged. Dr. Martinez had warned us that changing family dynamics would be a long process with setbacks. She was right. There were weeks when the system broke down, when old patterns reasserted themselves. Tyler occasionally forgot his cooking day. Madison sometimes played the artistic card to avoid mundane tasks. The twins occasionally waited to see if someone else would handle their responsibilities. Mum slipped into delegation mode, and Dad retreated to his workshop during hard conversations. But we had accountability now. The contract wasn't just paper. It was a commitment we reviewed monthly in family meetings. When someone slacked, privileges disappeared. When patterns improved, we celebrated progress. The therapy sessions continued peeling back layers of dysfunction and building healthier communication. 2 years later, at Tyler's wedding, he gave a speech that shocked everyone who'd known our family before. He thanked his bride for her patience, while he learned to be a true partner instead of expecting a servant. He credited me for teaching him that love meant sharing labor, not delegating it. He publicly apologized for years of taking my work for granted and announced that their marriage would be built on equality, not traditional gender roles. His bride Jennifer pulled me aside during the reception. She thanked me for breaking him of his entitlement before they met. She'd heard the stories from Sarah and others about the man-child he'd been. The man she married cooked half their meals, did his own laundry, and never expected her to manage their household alone. They were partners in every sense, and she knew that transformation started with me, refusing to enable his helplessness. Madison's senior art exhibition featured a series called Invisible Labor Made Visible. Each piece depicted household tasks as heroic acts, transforming mundane chores into powerful statements about unrecognized work. The centerpiece was a portrait of me at 16, exhausted over a sink of dishes, while my family relaxed in the background. The placard read, "For Allison, who held us up until we learned to stand." The twins went to college prepared for independence. They called home with pride about cooking for friends, managing their laundry, and keeping dorm rooms clean. Their roommates were amazed by their domestic competence, not knowing how hard-won those skills were. Emma became an RA, helping other students learn life skills their parents should have taught them. Jake started a YouTube channel about college cooking that went viral, his journey from complete incompetence to competence, resonating with thousands. Mum's real estate practice transformed as she became known for advocating for fair domestic labor valuation. She started a program helping divorced women re-enter the workforce after years of unpaid household management, recognizing their skills as project management, budgeting, and logistics expertise. Her tagline became, "Every home runs on someone's labor. Let's make sure it's valued." Dad became the neighborhood's go-to person for household management advice. His construction background combined with newfound domestic skills made him uniquely qualified to help other families create functional systems. He started a local workshop series, Real Men Do Housework, breaking down gender stereotypes one laundry load at a time. As for me, I graduated summa cum laude with my biochemistry degree and started graduate school with full funding. Marcus and I moved in together, creating a home where chores were naturally shared without negotiation needed. We cooked together, cleaned together, and built a life based on mutual respect and contribution. Looking back at that Black Friday morning, when I walked away from everything, I realized it wasn't just about dishes and laundry. It was about recognizing my own worth beyond what I could do for others. It was about teaching my family that love doesn't mean servitude, and that everyone's time and energy have equal value. The house that fell apart when I left wasn't really about my absence. It was about a system so fundamentally broken that it required one person's complete sacrifice to function. By refusing to be that sacrifice, I forced everyone to confront their own capabilities and responsibilities. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for people is stop enabling their helplessness. Now, when young women reach out after finding Emma's social media posts about our family's transformation, I tell them the same thing: you are not responsible for managing everyone else's life at the expense of your own. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. If the house falls apart when you stop doing everything, that's not your failure, it's evidence that the system was broken all along. My family's story could have ended with permanent estrangement with relationships too damaged to repair. Instead, it became a testimony to the possibility of change when people are forced to confront their own participation in unfair systems. But that change only happened because I was willing to let everything fall apart first. The most important lesson I learned wasn't about housework or family dynamics. It was about the power of saying no, of walking away, of refusing to sacrifice yourself for people who won't even acknowledge the sacrifice. Sometimes love means doing everything for people, but sometimes real love means stopping letting them fail and giving them the opportunity to grow into people worthy of your effort. The girl washing dishes at 11 p.m. on that Friday night thought she was trapped forever in that role. She believed her worth was measured in how much she could give to others while asking for nothing in return. She was wrong. Her worth was intrinsic, not earned through service. It just took letting the house fall apart for everyone, including herself, to finally see it. What would you do if you realized you were the only one holding everything together? Would you have the courage to let go and see what happens? Let me know in the comments below if you've ever been in a similar situation. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself and breaking free from unfair expectations. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that their labor has value and that sometimes the best thing you can do is stop doing everything. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, you deserve a life where your contributions are recognized, valued, and reciprocated. Until next time, this is Allison reminding you that you're worth more than what you do for others.